Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
This episode is brought to you by Sevens Boutique, an online shop created by 2 sisters, Angie and Jess, who believe you should walk boldly, dress divinely, and know your significance. At Sevens, you'll find easygoing pieces that are cozy, classy, and made to mix and match. Think relaxed pants, cozy sweaters, and lifestyle sets you'll want to live in. Every item is handpicked with purpose, so you can shop confidently, dress comfortably, and walk boldly. Inventory is small and curated, so if you see something you love, don't wait. Visit sevensboutique.com and use the code PODCAST10 for 10% off your first order. www.sevensboutique.com. Walk boldly, dress divinely, know your significance.
Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess, where Angie and I are really excited this week because we are being joined by another married couple who, based on all of their accolades, should be better at this whole blended family thing than we are. They host a podcast that's called Relationship Renovation, but they're also therapists and they have their own blended family. So honestly, I mean, it feels like we should learn a lot from you guys today. We're really excited to visit with you just off the air. We know that there's a lot of commonality between the 4 of us. So thank you guys for being here. I'll let you guys just briefly introduce yourselves and then we'll kind of dive in.
Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, I just want to say I love the name of your podcast. It's like so perfect. I was like, that is just absolutely so true. So kudos to you guys for that. My name's Tarah Kerwin. I'm a marriage and family therapist and yes, co-host of the Relationship Renovation podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like we got on the phone or on this call with you right away and we got into just the shared experience. And that's sort of always been what's worked for us in the space, whether it's therapists or as podcasters, is like we're not above it. We're in it. You know, we're in it with everybody as far as just the dynamics of having a long-term relationship, definitely blending a family and all of the, you know, the fact that I will never totally understand what it's like to be a step or a bonus mom, and she won't totally know what it's like to have a couple kids that, you know, that you feel stuck in the middle with. And it's what people have always loved is just the fact that like it's real. The struggle is real. It shifts and changes. Yeah. But we're always figuring it out just like everybody else.
And really just, you know, EJ and I developed our, you know, we both were therapists when we met. That's how we met. We were working together at an eating disorder recovery center and he had 2 boys and was going through a separation. And I was like, oh, EJ's like the coolest therapist ever. He's so great. His boys are so awesome. Well, then I was going to be, this is just like I was going to bring his wing sister because he went through a divorce. I'm like, EJ, we got to find you like a rebound. We're going to get you out there because I had never seen EJ like that. And we'd been friends for like a year and a half. Yeah. And that night he kissed me.
You were the rebound.
At the surly wench.
I was the rebound and I tried so hard. I was like, EJ, no, this can't happen. This isn't supposed to happen. Like you got to go sow your oats. I don't know what you do. I'd never been with someone who had kids and I just, again, seen EJ as a friend. And so I tried to break up with him multiple times. And then I was like, I just don't want to do life without EJ. So that's like where it was. Like I was 37, I think, when we got together. So I just had this instant, like, I don't want to do life without EJ. And then that was it. We went from 0 to getting engaged a year and a half later, honeymoon, pregnant with twins when we come back, 0 to 4 kids in a year and a half. And I'm like, we got this. We've got communication skills. We've got love. We're having twins. And
you're threatening to drive to Kentucky every day.
We were still working in the eating disorder field. people were like, and then the twins came and they both had colic, if you know what that is, both of them for 9 months, not 6 weeks or 9 weeks, 9 months. So my life changed. I'm like, could not go back to work, nursing every hour. And that's when it happened. I was like, EJ, what did you do? What just happened? Like my life just blew up. I felt so overwhelmed. And that's when I said, it was like 6 months in when I was on a walk, I said, EJ, we have to figure this out. We're two therapists. Like if this transition is impacting us in this way, we have to help other couples in our community. And that was the start of we opened our couples counseling center in 2016, so 10 years ago. But we knew this was really hard and we had no idea because all of our intentions were there. Like the blended family threw me for a loop and then some. And now I don't want to say mastered it, but we've helped so many people get empowered in that way from our own experience because we had to figure it out or we wouldn't be together today. I tried to leave him to go to Kentucky where my twin lives in the minivan we had to buy. I'm out of here. I am leaving. And then I would get 2 miles down the road and I'm like, oh, I love him. I don't want to leave. So that's the story of us and how we came to do everything we're doing and supporting couples with our podcast globally now is amazing. We get letters all the time, thank you for sharing your suffering because it means that we're not broken, that there are tools and skills needed, which people don't understand.
That's kind of what we thought when we started the podcast was we had been together for a couple of years at that point. We were now married and it was there's not enough resources.
Yeah.
So many more people are divorced these days and they're getting remarried and they have there were not enough resources out there to help us. And Angie loves resources to figure out how we can do it better. And so it's let's try and be a resource. But I think this is great because I love having a good resource and sort of meet you guys and to know that you're actually therapists that have gone through it, are going through it, and are helping others like ourselves go through it. And our listeners, fantastic.
Well, I think you're naive going into it, right?
Absolutely.
Our kids are hanging out together. Oh, how cute. Now let's throw them in a house together.
Oh,
and it works for a little bit until it doesn't. And it's oh my God, what did we do?
Well, and I remember those early, I started because I was so overwhelmed with the colic of our twins. I remember EJ had to go back to work and take over my caseload. So I would be home by myself and then be responsible for picking up the boys from kindergarten when the twins are if they do nap, now I have to take them out and they're double things, walk into the school. And then it became your kids and my kids. It became awful because I loved those boys. Just thinking about it now, I would still cry because I was how am I responsible for your kids now when I also have this? And I wanted them to just be separate. But my heart didn't want that. My overwhelm felt that because I was so responsible for all of these kids now. And I didn't know what to do with it.
When I think when we stepped out into the public space and tried to figure out like you guys, okay, how do I become a resource? How do I become something that's going to help people? There was just the component of just being somebody who's out there talking about it, because all forms of suffering, whether it's, because being therapists for as long as we've been helping people suffer for a long time.
Suffer less.
And it's helping people suffer less. And it's just that
Thank you.
None of us know what's going on behind each other, the closed doors.
Yeah.
And we tend to just hold our own suffering and just think I'm uniquely broken. We're uniquely broken. Everybody else who has a blended family seems to be happy as hell and doing CrossFit together and, and killing life. And then when you start talking about it, you get the fact that these are super common struggles. And that for a lot of couples, that's the beginning of just being oh, we're not broken here. Mm-hmm. And then that next step of the resources of okay, well then what now? How do we deal with these moments, because
that some are in our control and some are not, right? EJ's ex-wife was out. I had certain limitations as a mom that I do with my twins and I did with the boys. And that was the hardest thing for me. I wanted to give them everything I would give my own kids, but there's restriction there on the other side because we're very different. And that control, I'd be like, no, they can't go to that school. That's a terrible school. Like, they have to be in this school. Like, it was just a constant fight for control, which I didn't realize. Like, you only have so much control as a step parent, in a blended family. And you start going about it in very wrong ways out of fear. And then your partner, right? He's got the boys, like, then he starts to get defensive and protective with his boys because he doesn't know what's really happening for me. He sees me just being like angry and controlling instead of like under it was like super fear.
Yeah.
And so we had to work on like how to soften and be vulnerable and hear each other around like really difficult things. Like the boys are already going through a divorce at young ages. He's protecting them, maybe not setting boundaries because the ex was really difficult to set boundaries with.
Yeah.
Right. And then that would frustrate me. And so we had to just talk about boundaries, what's in our control, what's really important, how to make ourselves feel empowered versus be controlled by external circumstances that we actually don't have control of. You name it, we went through it and tried to resolve it in the healthiest ways possible. Yeah.
Well, you have such an interesting perspective because you've lived it, but you're also helping other couples go through it. What are like the most common challenges that you feel like blended families face? And then like, what do you recommend to them?
Yeah. I mean, I think Tarah sort of alluded to it right there is that like that there becomes a fracture within the family and the relationship where there's factions but it's almost like a moving puzzle because there's this like when times are going good, it's like us and our blended family and our, we're one unit. But then the moment things would get complicated, like even like, our language would change. My boys, your boys, us. And sometimes when Tarah was talking about us, it was like the twins and her, And so I think that way how things quickly fracture around very like it makes sense that's where the fault lines are. Like, it's like the fault line, the San Andreas fault. If there's going to be an earthquake, where it's going to be. It's going to hit San Francisco and LA because that fault line pre-exists. And so when there would be, an earthquake in our relationship, you knew where it was going to be. It was going to be around us and co-parenting the boys. Yeah. It was going to be around Tarah feeling that really the only safe place was her and the twins.
Where I had control, right?
And so I think like that was like a big dynamic for us and what we see with blended families all the time. And
I've never seen Angie feel that way.
Yeah. Well, and it's horrible, right? Like it's horrible when you start using pronouns in your relationship that exclude one another.
That hurts. That's that fraction you're talking about where you're like, we came into this as one, and now you're using a term that means we're separate. And that's, it's hurtful and it's hard. But I don't think it's just the four of us. I think it's pretty much
it's
everybody that's done this dance, right, has had this part of the dance going wrong.
I would say that's one of the biggest presenting issues, though, is the parenting from the blended, let's just say the kids who are blended that are biological with the two of you versus half kids coming in or the transitions from week on or week off. It's the parenting and the structure and the boundaries. Like we have one couple right now, like they keep trying to have a baby and they're having miscarriages. So she's resenting his daughter because she's, there all the time and they can't have their own. So that's creating a lot of suffering too. Like, why can you have this child with this other person and not me? There's so much there, but I would say it becomes a power control and then these poor kids get involved. Trust me, they were involved with us and that's where we really help the parents try to be on the same team.
Yeah. And then what gets really interesting is that trigger within the relationship then digs into the the very real problems that all couples have is when you get triggered and it hits that internal wound that's existed within you for a long time, right? So if like I'm doing things in our parenting around the boys where she feels powerless and she gets critical with me about it and I already feel powerless. So there's that, which is just its own kind of a mess. But then it's triggering my feelings of like, I never get it right. Like somebody is always telling me I'm screwing up. You're telling me I'm screwing up. My ex-wife told me I screwed up. My dad told me I screwed up. You know, it triggers those old wounds, but you don't see it. You're unaware of how much sort of gunpowder you have behind it. And you make it all about that one dynamic. Is like, you just don't understand how hard it is to be a parent of these, of my sons with, you know, in the circumstance. And that's a big piece for us when we work with couples is like, not just understanding the trigger within the relationship, but what's the iceberg that's underneath of, you know, of pain that it's hitting.
Just one more big thing too in our practice and in our coaching is that when the partner does not get along with the biological parent of those kids, and then it's like a constant, like you see this horrible communication over there, like this power struggle over there, and then the kids come in and it takes like 2-3 days to transition to your environment and no one has a plan for it. They just think, and so it's like another thing, like it's a kind of a shit show over there. And when they come back, it's like there's no system to it. And we got really good at creating systems because I know that for me, like we did every other week, I'd have so much anxiety the week the boys were there because it's like, oh, they're going to be on their screen a lot. They're going to be taking their screens in the bathroom and EJ's going to have really bad boundaries. And oh my God, I don't want my kids seeing that. I don't want that. Like I would just be a wreck. And then I finally, right, I was like, EJ, when our kids, right, that was a huge reframe. Here's what I need from you. Like we have to limit screens. It's really important to me because I don't want them being disconnected. I want to connect as a family. Like I just say all of the needs and stuff. So we really help couples. What Dr. Stan Tatkin calls it predict, plan, prepare for that transition. Because a lot of blended families, whatever that custody looks like, they don't plan for the transitions and the kids have a really hard time. And if the parents aren't up for it, that's where a lot of fractures can happen as well. Okay, now
let's talk about that just for a second. I was going to ask a different question. I'll try to come back to that, but this was really what you just said. I think is very important. What are some practical tips then that people can use for the boundaries, for the transition that is so difficult?
For us, it was like we knew when the boys would come back to our house, it would be about 2.5 days of disconnection because at their mom's house, it's very different from our house. We are a busy family. We're constantly doing things. We are like on it. We're talkative. We have a lot of stimulation. We've got 4 animals. We're a lively crew. And the boys would come from this quiet, chill in their rooms, being able to do what they want to do. And now they'd be expected to talk to us. Engage, family dinners, oh no, family games, oh my, that's going to be hard for them. So we had to accept that it's going to take a couple of days for them to engage with us. And so we would start putting schedules on the board. Like, hey guys, around 6 to 7:30, we're going to have our family dinner. You can have screen time here. So it was like, especially on the weekends where, kids could easily just like go into their bedroom and isolate, because I think that's what they did a lot at their other home. We would have a schedule on the board so everyone knows like, hey, here's some screen time to like have your own time, get it. Here's when we're having dinner. We're going to watch whatever. We love watching America's Funniest Home Videos together. And so we did a schedule. So we had an acceptance, we had a patience around those first 2 days, but we had a schedule and we would talk about it like, hey guys, we know every other week you're in 2 different homes. What is it that you're needing, especially as they got older, right? As teens and all of that.
I mean, I think like on like a generalized way is looking at like times of transition are incredibly stressful, whether that's in life of just like new jobs, becoming empty nesters, retiring. That's when couples come in, right? So in the macro sense, transitions are hard for people to manage. Then in the sense of blended families, there's like a cyclical transition that's happening sometimes every 3 days in some blended families, sometimes once a week, and really having that be something you all talk about together, because they're highly stressful times for kids as well. That handoff can be a brutal time for a kid, even if you think you're managing it well, but them facing, sort of a cold war between their parents on the handoff. Simple things like my son, like this 19 now, he's gone to college. It's the first time he's lived in one place.
That's a big
17 years. In 17 years. And like, how thoughtful were Tarah and I about that in the early years? Not very. It was not the top of our priority list. Our priority list was around managing our relationship when they would transition, at best, and so I think it's like looking like holistically at your family in those times of changes. What's challenging for each of you?
Yeah.
And how do you engage in a healthy conversation and prepare for it so that there's this feeling of like, we're not just stumbling through this. And that's what we did forever, was we just stumbled through it. I could feel Tarah's tension. I'm an avoidant partner, so I would kind of like just try to like behind the scenes manipulate the environment to not piss her off, which was super ineffective. The boys probably would tiptoe in, or they'd, not give a flip and just like be like, whatever, I'm going straight to my room, and so I think preparing for transitions is huge.
This is funny. This is like, at one point, this is like how controlling I got. I was like, we need to have a basket outside of the bathrooms that you put your cell phone in. Like, that is crazy. Right? Like that should have never happened. It actually didn't happen. Like, I learned
there weren't a lot of cell phones in those baskets, let me tell you.
I learned healthy expectations. I learned where my place was really as a stepmom, because at first I was like, I have to parent them just like the twins. And actually that's not true. They have a mom, they have a dad. They might not have the best communication, but like my part is to be like a really cool role model and let them know I love them. But when I was trying to parent them and control things, it went south. And
mostly for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Mostly it was the most painful.
That letting go, I was like, this is good.
Yeah.
There's like a million things I want to say. Like the transition thing is a huge deal. And we have a mix of scenarios. So one of Eric's kiddos is kind of like the only child. So at his other house, he is the only child and is a big deal, right? Then you come into this big family and it's like, get in line. We have this whole messiness going on all the time. And so that's one aspect of transition. My twins, my son, for 5 years, I was divorced, had my own house, my safe place, and my 3 kids. And he was the only son. So he was kind of like the, leader. He's the man of the house. And so even
he was like 7, 8, 9, but he was the leader, and that's carried over for him. Yes.
And even, now at his other house, he's very much a leader, that protector's heart type of person. So then he comes into our house amongst other boys and a strong male role model. And that transition, he didn't want anybody to tell him what to do because he's like the boss of himself,
Absolutely.
And so that whole transition, same thing, literally, we always say 2 days. And then they start sort of adapting into that. But it is definitely a thing. And it's trying to make sure that everybody's got their unique place within our family so that they do feel seen, but also knowing that everybody has to readjust. The other thing you mentioned that is also a huge deal, my oldest Hallie was the first one that went off to college. And it was like the first time she ever had all of her stuff in one place.
One place. Yeah.
And then you see how big of a deal that is. And you do realize like how terrible it is for kids to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And my other daughter, Summer, who is one of the twins and 17, she's very much, the skincare, the clothes, like all of this stuff. And for her to pack up and go back and forth every week is a huge deal.
Absolutely.
She leaves everything here at the house. And then to aid in her transition to go to the other house, I always sit down with her and I help her pack up everything every week because I know that stresses her out. It is a stress to this day.
Absolutely.
Of like, I have to pack up all of my stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what I have going on the weekend I'm not here. So she overpacks, but that's the way I feel like I help her transition is I help her get everything packed to eliminate some of that stress. So it's like all these different dynamics is so hard.
Our 17-year-old just lives out of his green bag. He might have a dresser in his room. He doesn't use it. He takes his green bag. He just puts his stuff in. And then I did say with him, I'm like, hey, honey, your skincare, right? Because he's 17. I'm like, let me get you one for your mom's and one for here. And so let me help you so that doesn't feel stressful because he'd come home and he'd forget his like Proactive or something. So I just ordered 2 sets so he could have one and each so he wouldn't get stressed out about that now that he cares about his skincare, which is huge. But no, it is. It's like, but you know what's so great? Like we were so wrapped up in the stress of everything that once we settled in and once we started, we created a whole model of what we take all of our couples and families through and we got curious about each other, like being able to talk to your kids, like what is it like for you to have to like, because it actually used to be 3 days on, 4 days off. And they were like, we'd rather just be a week on, week off. We're like, got you. We can make that happen. Like just knowing that their experience mattered. Hey, what's it like that you see the twins going to like the #1 school in the United States? Like, and I really wanted you guys to go there, but like, I'm always asking because I always have this feeling in my head, like, do they think I do more for the biological kids that EJ and I share then? And they're like, no, they think it's cool. There's not any of that. But it's, a lot of it is my own stuff that I projected onto them. So just having their experience and letting them open up to it is it's awesome.
We do have some of that. We definitely have sometimes we'll get like, oh, well, you do more for this one than this one. And then we have to like sit down and explain how we try to keep everything fair, but everybody is different and has different needs. And that part is tough because you're still trying to navigate the other household. You're still parenting with the other house and trying to stay aligned. And then how I parent my kids with my ex-husband is a little bit different than how Aric parents with his ex-wife. And so there's always
you guys have all those dynamics.
Yeah, we don't have kids together. We have them all separate. I mean, he would have wanted to. But
I wanted to, but she's like, I'm not doing it. So
I'm too old.
You would
Closed
be
for business.
more than the Brady Bunch, right?
It would have been at 7 at that point. Yeah, it would have been.
Unless you had twins again.
7. Yeah. I was going to mention a minute ago, you guys were talking about, and it was exactly the question I was going to bring up earlier, but then Tarah got to it kind of. So I just want to look at it a little bit more. Just this morning, I was sharing with some guys that Angie was great when we started dating about explaining to me, even with my own kids, that I couldn't parent each of my kids the same way. That was hard for me to understand because my dad parented us all the same way, and that's what I knew. And so while I'm still trying to figure out that, then I had to also learn. We say bonus parent. As a bonus parent, I couldn't parent her kids the same way. And then when I was trying to figure out how to parent them differently, then it was also, they're actually all different humans that I have to reach in a different way. And then like you said, then you also have to realize when, I actually can let that part go, but I do have to interact with them differently so I think that's a really big thing for parents as a whole is learning. Step 1, all your kids are different. You actually have to engage and interact with them differently. And so then 2, when it's in a blended scenario, there's even more layers to that. If you guys just could touch on that briefly.
Let me just share this. This is huge. This is such a perfect example. So our oldest comes home from college for Thanksgiving. And he's I'm like, our daughter loves him. She worships the ground he walks on, and he gives her
indifferent at best.
So she's like, when he gets home, we're going to make cookies and whatever. And I was like, oh. And so he was pretty disconnected. And I was like, what about my baby? He's not giving her any attention. And I said it at first, like scared, because I saw Mia, like she would get really sad and she would cry. And Mom, he's not even like spending any time with me. And so we knew he had a prolonged period over Christmas. And so EJ had a conversation with him. Hey, your sister loves you. She really wants to connect with you. It would be so important if you took a couple of times to connect with her. And over the holidays, he was so much more connected with her, but we have to be on him for that. And
he's different and
it's important for me that happens.
Well, and I think that speaks to it's like, just because they function differently doesn't mean that we have to like reinforce or just give in to their tendencies. You know, that because like Forrest he's a little more detached. He does his own thing. He's good at taking care of his own needs. That doesn't mean we just totally accept that either. You know, that we have to find healthy ways, because, you know, I would relate a lot of that to him around stuff like, you know, you have to put work into relationships.
Absolutely.
And that work, oftentimes, you're laying seeds for something that's important farther down the line. It's like not just like knowing that our kids function differently, but also knowing like where's the healthy way to push it. And then that would be a challenge for us, because Tarah's way of pushing it and my way of pushing those boundaries would be very different. And both of us have blind spots, in that mine might be more, maybe, you know, more avoidant, you know, more like wait and see-ish. And hers might be more controlling and more like, you know, trying to grab the steering wheel out of their hands. But when
so true,
when blended, they become more functional. That she helps me address things heads on a little more. Like I help her realize like sometimes more is too much.
Right.
You know, and so we have to support each other.
Yeah, like we just finally agreed, like, hey guys, when you come in, just come say hi to us, say hi to your brother and sister. When you leave, come say hi. And then, hey, maybe this hour on a Sunday, we're all going to be together and watch this show. Like, we try to be very realistic, but also like, hey, this is our value. Like, we have to connect with each other, especially with cell phones nowadays. And like everyone plugged into this, like it's scary for me because I come from a very disconnected trauma background. So a lot of that connection for me, I'm like hyper vigilant around it. And now that EJ and I can communicate in very healthy ways, he's got my back. But he's got my back in a very realistic way. It's not like Forrest is going to have 2-hour like talks with Mia about their sibling relationship. It's like, hey man, I'll take you to the cat cafe. We'll go for 30 minutes. Okay, great.
Well, and our middle son really appreciates now because he knows what the expectations are.
Absolutely.
He knows, and they're not unrealistic. They're like, you know what, when you walk in the door, look at me and say hi and ask me how I'm doing. Like that's enough, man. Just do that. And now he's like, okay. And you know what? Every time he walks in the door, he walks up to us and says, hey, T, how was your day?
It's so nice. Like there's not even prompting anymore. It's like he just does it because he knew we never gave up. We never gave up. Yeah. You know, there were those weeks where like, oh, can you please just say hi? And then we'd be like, okay, you guys, this is why this is important to us. And we try to teach them why we're constantly on our family around connection. And we just didn't give up. A lot of people give up. I've seen this. Like, you know what? He's almost 18. I'm just going to like let it, whatever happen. Like for us, that's not our value. We do not resign with our children ever, no matter how they're presenting. But we're instilling our values of connection and relationships because it's what we do. And it's important to teach, especially nowadays with so many people so unplugged, like we know the nightmare of mental health issues with our adolescents today. And so we just can't let it happen. We are just compelled because of the work we do to we're staying plugged in, guys. We have to. It's important because we love you.
How do you guys, I think one of the challenges that we've had in everything that we've been through, because we had someone tell us, another therapist we had on our podcast a long time ago, and we were kind of like, what? But she's like, it takes 7 years to blend. And we're like, holy shit.
What? We're only
what the hell are you talking about?
And I feel like we got to a good spot. And then we lost my oldest daughter, Hallie, tragically at 20. And it was
so sorry.
Horrible.
Oh, I'm
horrible.
So
Still is horrible. But from a blended family perspective, it felt like we had to completely restart.
Absolutely.
Completely restart. She was the oldest, the kind of leader, fun, crazy one. But what we struggled with the most through that was our connection. Yeah. And there were definitely some very, very rough times because I naturally wanted to go inward.
Absolutely.
Aric craves physical, emotional connection. And I'm tapped out. I'm out.
Yeah.
I can't even get through each day.
Yeah.
And that's an extreme example. But I also think from a blended perspective, it is really, really hard when you're navigating the mess of kids and parenting and all the complications and challenges that you face, the big cracks that you mentioned earlier. Yeah. What advice do you give to husband and wives that want to keep fighting the fight, but they're totally disconnected emotionally, physically, all, what I'm saying? That personal connection.
I mean, there's a couple of things that jump out at me there. And one is just, and what you went through, you guys went through, and that tremendous grief and all that's like an acute
trauma
place that you guys were in. And we all adapt differently. And our adaptive traits are built upon sort of how we survived our childhood. And that doesn't necessarily mean full on trauma or anything, but just literally how you get through life as a young human being, right? And then you enter into adulthood and you're faced with situations, whether it be something really just tremendous grief or just the complications of a blended family or keeping your intimate life connected, and both people use their adaptive ways to deal with each of those situations. But in a coupleship, they most often don't fit together.
Yeah.
The way you adapt and your partner adapts are completely different. And they oftentimes interrupt each other's adaptations.
Absolutely.
And a big part of it for us is helping couples understand just what automatically happens for each of you in those moments. And then maybe even both of you taking a really deep look at well, is that actually the way I want to adapt in a situation like this? And is this actually, even though it's driving me freaking crazy that my partner is trying to deal with it this way, he still wants to be connected. He wants to be physically soothed, and I just need space. Is going okay, even though that's driving me crazy because it's interrupting my process, maybe this is actually my area of growth.
Right.
Maybe I need to step out in these moments and connect. Maybe I need to have abilities to self-soothe at times instead of needing this, and that then you guys get in that together. And so you're hey, I'm noticing this is where the direction I'm going. Well, I notice this is the way I'm going. Okay, well, can we intentionally actually move together in this moment?
Through compassion.
So that we're not tripping over each other and hurting each other unknowingly.
Unknowingly, what happens is we lose compassion for each other, especially in difficult moments. And then that person becomes a lack of support. The one person we were you are the one person to make me feel safe. So when you start to build that compassion again by understanding why they're doing what they're doing and why they're grieving in that way, and there's that heart open to it, it's a huge shift. It's just that we start to feel very separate because we're grieving in a very different way.
Yeah. Because instead of seeing our partners they're doing that just to hurt me, we start to see like, no, they're just doing that because that's just like, that's all they know. That's how they survived up until this point.
And we, like, just so you guys know, like in our counseling center, even with my individual clients, we take couples through it's what I was trained in, family systems, but a genogram, individual and relationship timeline process. Because a lot of couples we see are like, it's this or we're done, right? It's crisis. We're like, we know. And listen, we're not going to talk about any of this right now because you will not hear it in a different way. And we're not going to let this space be traumatic for you guys. We take them through the time when they were in the womb, from until they met with each other. How do they process emotions? How do they regulate emotions? What was that like in their environment? And then the relationship timeline starting from the first time they met through up until they're now, so they could start to see the cracks where they didn't have the skills. It wasn't that they were bad people. We don't get taught that transitions are hard. We get taught to like, yeah, you're going to love somebody and then have kids. Awesome. What?
Yeah,
there's a lot more to it, you guys.
We have a couple that we're coaching right now who blended family as well.
Huge.
And they're processing through this really complicated family dynamic. And for the first time after 20 years, really understanding what was happening for the other person.
Wow. For their blended
and communicating in a way that's very specific and concrete. So they're not filling in the blanks, because we fill in a lot of blanks. We see our partner do something and we're like, well, they're doing that because of A, B, and C. And a lot of times our assumptions are they're off base. And you see them doing it and it's just like, there's this connection that's been broken for a long time that's starting to just...
And 20 years, they thought
connect back together.
They thought this was something, his daughter was something they could never talk about, that they would just go to their deathbed, never talking about the impact it had on their relationship. That's what they thought. And we started talking about it and they're both in tears, having a shared emotional experience instead of avoiding it like the abyss. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's just, you gotta be willing to be vulnerable and let your partner in. It's hard.
What I'm hearing you say, whether it's with your partner or even to connect with the kids, is that really it's almost like peeling back the layers of an onion at times where you're trying to get to the actual center of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you can like rebuild relationship once you realize the actual driving force behind why somebody's feeling the way that they are. Right? Is that
Relationship renovation?
There it is.
Right there. We got to start at the bare bones, baby. Let's renovate that. It's about what are the negative core beliefs, a lot of it, that we developed early on that are now getting triggered in this adult relationship. Because when I used to get triggered with EJ, I was like a 15-year-old girl, like oppositional, defiant, like, you're not going to tell me what to do. I am out of here. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm adult, right? I'm 38. Not now, I'm 49, but like, I can handle this, right? It was just like all these unmet needs from my childhood getting triggered. And yeah, it's about soothing that and kind of reparenting ourselves in this adult relationship. And a big thing too, this is huge with moms, blended families for me, like ask the mom. I was like, I have to do everything. It's all on me. And I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted. I thought asking for what I wanted meant like I'm a failure. When I started to be like, EJ, this is like really important. Like I need this. This is like really, if I don't have this, like something bad will happen. Like I had to get really good at saying what I needed and not expect that he just knows, which I'm like, he had 2 boys before. He should know exactly what I need. No, but that was my expectation. He's done this before. I had never changed a diaper, but it was nothing like that.
I'd never changed two at the same time.
2 at once. Wow.
Oh my heavens. Anyway.
Yeah, that was probably quite the shock of going into that.
But I mean, I know that was like a long kind of answer to what you guys were sharing. And I can't even imagine that loss. Like in my mind, I feel like I would literally die if that happened. Like literally, I feel like that. And we've had couples that have lost children and did exactly separate. He would go to the bar or work late hours. And it's like they just had to learn that they were both suffering just very differently and how to like embrace each other through this awful, terrible tragedy. And it was really hard. They did that work. They're happier than they've ever been. This was like a few years ago, but it's like the most unimaginable thing you can possibly imagine.
And you do actually die. Like there was
can't
a
even
huge part of me that died that I'll never get back.
No.
So we talk about like in marriage too, you're married to like 7 different versions of your spouse because you grow and evolve and all of that. And I don't know how many versions we're on in a very short time because
we'll be married 5 years in April, and we have joked to each other, wow, this has been a lot of change personality over a short period of time. And, not her fault, not necessarily my fault, just the scenario that we were in. Because it is, when you lose a child, it's like a bomb that goes off, I would say. And you have to like clear the area back to ground zero. It's not like you can take some of the structure and build back around it. It's like a complete like leveling of the playing field that you were on. And then you have to start, then you're rebuilding from ground up.
And your cracks that you had before, the fears that you have before are just so exposed. And even what you were saying earlier around like my kids, I mean, right after that, it was like, oh my gosh, like I want to spend all my time with my kids, with the 2 that I have left, because he has his other 3 kids. I lost my kid, my child. And
I noticed the change in her language.
Oh, for sure.
I wasn't going to like push on it, right? I'm not that stupid where I was going to be like, well, we've never used those terms before. But in that time, it was like, I didn't understand the reasoning 100%. I mean, obviously, I had a little bit of an inkling as to why it was happening.
But we weren't even married that long. We were married a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
So it was just a complete wreck. But you do.
And I think just as therapists here, like people don't understand because, we work with like a lot of trauma, a lot of infidelity, betrayal trauma. Like it takes your brain at least a year. We just had this other couple, like she just lost her mom and she's like, my husband still wants to have sex. How could he still want to have sex? I'm like, well, first of all, you guys grieve differently, but you just had a huge loss and it takes a year. It truly does. Research shows this. For your nervous system, for your brain to start coming back to where it used to be, it'll never be where it used to be. And so if you guys don't have this information around like trauma, grief, and how the nervous system repairs, then you're just adding on to all of the toxicity or the imbalance of it all, and then that even feels worse. And then there's no room. Then it's like your brain is just on a constant like
fight or flight.
Yeah. So I'm just really sorry that you lost your daughter, but
Thank you.
That year in between, it's where like, you guys, you're not going to get through this infidelity or this trauma or this loss in the next 6 months. I'm sorry. I tell people that. I'm very direct. I've been a therapist for 20 years. I'm not going to just like, you're going to be over this in 6 months. Got one couple, they've been with me for 5 years because of infidelity. You know what? They come every week and they had to wait 2 years for that trauma to like feel stable again. But they had each other's back, even though they didn't want to, but they still kept coming. And, if you do the work and have an understanding around, the internal experience of each other, like that's huge. It's why we did our R&R manual, like at home. A lot of people can't afford therapy. So we did you can get it on Amazon, just like questions, curiosity, asking your partner like who they really are. Like, I know everything about my partner. No, you don't. No, you don't. And you're constantly transitioning. Like just with you guys, 5 years married. Well, you've got kids at every ages. You've had significant loss in the first year. That is not easy. Like there are some skills and some understanding and some compassion that you need to learn about because you guys are having to probably go through some of the most difficult things together early on, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you might have been asked this multiple times, but if you had one piece of parenting advice, maybe not even blended, but just parenting, because we know it is super challenging regardless of, what situation you're in. Yeah. What would be that one piece of advice that you would share with parents?
I think parents, when they're struggling with that, they want to do anything they can to not feel divided in it. And so you have to find a common denominator. And it's easy to just focus on what's not working and what you don't like about what your partner is doing. And so I would have them do an exercise around common values.
Exactly.
Is trying to go really broad, not about the cell phone use or which school they go to or not, because that's where it gets really messy if you don't have a sort of aspiration or a guidepost. And I would say, like, sit down and really talk about, like, what are your common values in parenting? Like, what really matters to you? What are you trying to impart in almost a more abstract way to your kids? What are sort of the guiding principles of your unified parenting? And then getting them someplace out there where you see them all the time, so that anytime you do face the they need more protein conversation, their kids, they could eat pickles every day and survive. You have the ability to go, like, healthy. We decided that, like, we want healthy kids together, right? Whatever we approach this particular subject matter with, let's let that be our guidepost, because we know we're together in that. We might not be together in the exact amount of protein they should have, but we know we want them to be healthy. And I think, like, just having something that unites you makes you feel like you're together in it. Because the worst is when you're doing something that you care about, which is raising children, but you feel like you're not on the same page at all.
Yeah.
That sucks. That's horrible.
Yeah. What he said.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to just say grace too, because you're going to get it wrong and you're going to mess it up, and to have that, right, to understand instead of being understood. Like, always have that energy. Like, how can I understand EJ better instead of he's got to understand why I need this. Like, that's just
grace is such a great thing, whether that's with our partner or with our children. The grace is such a big deal. So I love that you mentioned that. Well, for our listeners, I think we could probably talk for 2-3 hours.
I know.
But we don't tend to go that long. But for our listeners that would love to hear more from you, where can they find your podcast? Maybe what are your socials, website, things like that?
I mean, Relationship Renovation is the name of the podcast. If you go straight to Google, all our stuff will pop up. I will say we have a really great Patreon community where we're putting in tips every day. We're interacting with members of it. And again, it's Relationship Renovation.
And Instagram's relationship_renovation. Yeah, you'll just find just Relationship Renovation or Tarah and EJ Kerwin. Everything kind of pops up.
Awesome. Well, I totally enjoyed this conversation.
It was so beautiful to meet the both of you guys. I know. I can't wait to have you on our podcast. Yay.
Yeah, we really look forward to it. That'll be fantastic.
I know.
Absolutely.
We're so excited.
Yeah, we'll reach out afterwards and we'll hook it up.
That sounds great.
Well,
you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
For each and every one of you listening, we appreciate you guys so much. Hope you have a wonderful week, and God bless. Thank you for listening to Blended Blessed and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.